everyone. It's Georgina Badine here, the founder of Invicta Vita, and I am delighted to welcome Rara Plumptre on today's podcast. Rara, thank you so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure.
It's a true honor to have you. Today we're going to talk about the importance of networking and how having a great network is really important in life. And you are known as the Queen Networker in London. I've known you for 7 years now, and I think you're one of the most effective networkers I've ever seen. So I want to talk to you today about that and how people can learn from you. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, how do you network so effectively? What are your kind of key tips and also things to avoid?
I think there's a lot of people get very shy about going into a room with a lot of people. And I think sometimes the young, if you can take in another person with you, it often helps. I think also the thing is to wear what you like, not what you're meant to do. I think at times we're all trying to be somebody else. And I think nowadays it's very important to dress in the way that you feel happy, especially since COVID. I think it's really important for the young to understand that. And I think one of the bases is, the most important thing is that networking is meant to be fun. So many people find it a struggle, but networking is meant to be fun.
Absolutely. I think one thing I found quite challenging when I started out in my career and was networking was how to smoothly exit a conversation. And sometimes it can be really easy, especially when you meet someone either that you know or that you feel comfortable with. You just want to stick to them. But then, of course, what happens is you don't network and you don't meet anyone. So how do you smoothly exit a conversation without coming off across as rude?
That's a difficult one. And I think especially in that capacity, often if there's something to drink, i.e. a cup of coffee, cup of tea or whatever, you can move around in that capacity. You often see somebody the other side of the room that you might know, and it's quite, I think people are personally quite friendly. I mean, obviously if they're in long conversations, they cannot be, but most people are very supportive in those sort of situations. And it's that thing of not having to be too frightened about making the move. And once you've done it, then don't just stand around and be on your own. The answer is there's always somebody who'll pick you up, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you actually recommend young people who are new to this introduce themselves at a networking event? What's the most effective way? Because I tend to find that sometimes people start off with almost like a resume of what they do, which can come across a little bit formal. So how could someone introduce themselves in a more informal way?
I think sometimes you chop into somebody's conversation, and if that's the case, then you stand and then obviously bring in your own ideas in the conversation. Sometimes if you're just walking into the area and you're having to introduce yourself, I think it's always lovely to introduce yourself by name and then ask the other people in the circle of people what their names are, because obviously then you've got ahead on that one. And then normally that brings in some conversation and you can move forward in that capacity.
That's really useful. Absolutely. I think we also wanted to touch upon, I know we've spoken about the importance of saying thank you.
Yes. You and I both. I think it's a very interesting thing. I'm of an older generation, and we're always smacked hand by not answering a thank you or whatever. And even today, I think our generation still write thank you letters. Nowadays, it's a little less so. And I think, we say, for instance, we go and have a cup of coffee with somebody, and they pay for it. You've gone there, they pay for it. Very seldom do you get a thank you for that. It becomes a big thing now. And I don't know why, and I would love to. I think if the young can get themselves back into saying thank you, it means a lot to us. It means a lot to the people who are looking after them. My little business has run for now 10, 15 years nearly, and it has been really about the young and looking after them. And I think it's lovely when somebody writes and says thank you, even an email, even a text. It's really nice, and you do appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I know we've spoken about this before, but there have been times where I've made introductions to people that have really helped them. And only recently I made an introduction to someone, and I actually didn't find out from them that the business had taken them on. I found out from the business I introduced them to. And I was quite shocked by that because I didn't get a thank you. I didn't get a mention in terms of, well, we're delighted they've actually taken us on. And so, whilst I expected to find out from the actual business that they had taken them on, I expected they would tell me that. So I got nothing. And actually, what I got instead is, oh, who else can you introduce us to?
Yes. And so there's the relationship in that, and it doesn't breed very, kindly to you, because obviously you're the one who supported the person getting the job and everything. And I think there is a lot of that at the moment. And I don't know how we can make it better, but I think it is really important. I think these are the sort of things that the universities, when people go to university now, that you lose I think you lose the relationship of what you're meant to be doing and what you're not meant to be doing. And I think we've talked about mentors at a young age, and I know you are very supportive of that. And I think I'm right in saying, is that true?
Absolutely, yes. I set up Invicta Vita a year and a half ago. I'd had a career in banking for 14 years, as you know, and I knew you for quite a long time during that career. And the reason I set up Invicta Vita was to help both the young but also more mature people in terms of their career advancement, career progression, helping them decide what they want to do, or maybe a change in career, which happens to a lot of people later in life. I do agree with you, though, in terms of the importance of gratitude and saying thank you. And someone said to me the other day, your network is your net worth. And that's so true.
Yeah.
And actually, this idea of flakiness, I think it's recognizing when someone is being flaky. And when do you actually then go, this connection is no longer serving me? I mean, I've had it with a couple of people where I'm introduced and they cancel last minute. And by last minute, I mean half an hour before the meeting. And I know you've had it as well. And at what point do you go, actually, I'm not going to pursue this connection any further because this person is not invested, they're not respectful of my time and of the commitment I'm giving to them?
I think we go back, and I think that's why you've set up in such a really important area, and the more the merrier in there, please, because I think we are losing a lot of what I call the value of people. And when you have young in those sort of situations, it's really difficult to make them, for them to understand. And I feel very strongly that we go back to mentors a little bit, and you know what I feel about that. I think it's really important to have a younger and an older mentor, and I think we should be doing that right the way through, even into, our later age. I mean, I've got mentors, and I'm sure you have too. And I think it's really important to
Absolutely.
have that.
I mean, having mentors early on in my career really changed everything for me. It helped me become more professional. It helped with my self-confidence. And you never stop learning. You never stop growing. No one's the finished article. And actually, yes, I have a mentor currently. And I always love to be able to pick up the phone to my mentor and say, actually, this happened today and it knocked my confidence, or I'm not quite sure about this. Do you think I'm doing it in the right way? Or what's your advice on this? And actually, there's always someone out there who can help guide you. And it's not because you're more experienced or you've got a decade or even 20 years under your belt in your career that you know everything. And so I also think having someone who's completely objective and external to your situation just adds that weight and that credibility and that objectivity that you don't necessarily have when you're doing it on your own. And you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business, and there are moments that are tough. There are moments where you question. And so having, I think, that outside person. So what would your advice be then to younger people who are really not sure what they want to do? How do they go about getting a mentor for a start?
I think I think lots of people have friends around their families, older people around the family, so it can be a godparent or whatever. I think they are often amazing in those sort of situations. as an older person in a younger person's life. I think a younger person is normally can be a very, very good friend or somebody that's in business already that will help you through certain times of your life. You know, we look back into you starting up Invicta Vita, um, you know, you need people around you to start a business. And I think it's really important in today. I don't think anything's different. I think everybody needs somebody. And I think it's really important that you've got people that you can turn to and say, what do I do? Especially as it's so difficult to get jobs now.
Yes.
And to get into work and to get CVs out and to get them read. And it's really complicated. We all need to be proactive about that, and especially people in business. And I know that sounds tough on them, but they should be looking out for other people or younger people who they can bring in. I know a lot of firms do that, but it's quite tough out there for the young, as you know.
Oh, yeah. Why do you think it's so difficult for young people nowadays to get jobs?
So I go back to COVID a little bit. I think COVID turned us around a bit. I'm not blaming COVID for that, but I think the problem being is in COVID, we were all in our rooms on a computer or a telephone. We still are,
Yeah.
but it brings us internal rather than external. So one of the things that, if you need a job, one of the best things you can do, even though you don't want to, is to get out and network or try to find areas that are important that you can have a normal relationship with other people in. Because I think so many people are sitting in their rooms behind their computers. And don't get me wrong, there's two sides to that. There's people that love that and want to do that, and there are people who love networking. So it's really both sides, but it's trying to find the way out of that, and getting people back into work is one of the most difficult things, especially now we've broached on it today, AI in different ways and all that coming along. And we can go there, can't we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI is just a beast in itself, but I agree. I think there is an over-reliance on AI now in terms of, we talked
Correct.
about them doing your CV and they just get auto-rejected. So please, guys, don't use AI to write your CVs. But I also see it in certain emails that I receive from certain people now. It's clearly been written by AI, and that removes that creativity and that ability to actually learn how to write well. And so part of what we do at Invicta Vita is actually saying to people, no, actually, let's teach you how to do this yourself without relying on ChatGPT. And actually, let's get you being more confident, presenting, introducing yourself, and actually networking. Networking doesn't have to be this scary, horrible feeling. It's actually all about people. And generally, you'll find that most of the people you meet at networking events are really lovely. They're not there to judge you. It's not a trap. No one's there to trick you. And actually, you might end up meeting your future employer, or you might end up meeting your next client. As you know, some of my contacts have said, oh, I got a client thanks to you. And that wasn't even like purposefully set up. That's just me literally saying, oh, come and meet this person. She's lovely, or he's lovely. And actually, they get on really well, and one ends up becoming the client of the other, which is great. I love that. I love those kind of synergies.
I think that's where, as you know, introductions and connections are wholly important. You're fantastic at it, and you've related to that in a really big way, and you're free with your introductions and connections, which is incredibly good. And I think that is the thing, to build what you've done with Invicta Vita is incredibly difficult at a time it's needed. It's hugely needed, but you have huge empathy there, and you don't turn anybody away. I think that is really important. And your structure there is huge, because basically we are all in a generation wanting to help a younger generation. And don't get me wrong, they get a lot of criticism, as we've talked about before.
Yep.
And they shouldn't have. Some of them, of course, maybe. But it is a younger generation. They're doing it differently, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a younger generation. The world has changed. COVID has affected us in a way that I think we never expected. Now a lot more people are doing hybrid type working from home, more flexible hours. And so employers do need to get with the times. What advice would you give to young people who say to you, look, I've applied to hundreds and hundreds of jobs and no one's noticing me. I'm just not getting through. I can't even get through an interview, or the rare interviews I get through, I get turned away. What are they doing wrong?
So they're not, in a funny way. They're not. The trouble is there are very few people who will hold people's hands in that capacity, and that's where you're amazing at. So basically, we've all had people who've had their head on the floor, slightly because of different situations, 100 email going out and nothing back, and this, that, and the other. And there are lots of people like that. But it's trying to get out and be seen. And therefore, we go back to the networking side. And I think, if you can get to network now and you are doing it properly, it is worth it. It really is worth it, because there are millions of people trying to give you an opportunity, but often you're not cited. So it's complicated. But I think a CV just straight into a company now, it's not as easy as it used to be. We could all walk into a job and see the person, or we had a friend who was in the business. Now it's very different. You can't do it any longer. You can't do that. Oh, by the way, could you help such and such? It doesn't happen like that any longer. And I think that's the difficulty for the young. But I think the more people like you or I, the better these children are going to be. And it's not, as we've talked about, it's not only young. It's the older people wanting, being retired or from a business at the age of 50, 55, 60, people are being made. And they don't know they want to continue. They've got to continue. And it's trying to find the other side of that. And that's also difficult, hugely difficult, as you know.
It is really difficult. And I think sometimes we forget those people who maybe are more mature and have quite a lot of experience and either get made redundant, say, in their 50s, or actually they might get to 50 and say, actually, I'm really unhappy in this career. I want to change.
Correct.
But I don't know what I want to do because I've spent the last 30 years doing this career. So what advice would you have for those types of people?
Well, I suppose I'm a great believer in set your own business up.
Yeah, love it.
I think just telling you a brief story, I was 53, 54 when I had to start again, and I hadn't worked in my marriage, so, and it was difficult. But I'm a great believer in, if you believe you can do it, there are people that will help you through that. I will see anybody. I've never turned anybody away. I will see anybody in that capacity, because I think at least you can say you've done it, you've tried.
Yeah.
Even if you've got a business just for 8 months, you've done it, you've tried. Because I think that's the other thing. I often think sometimes we can go there, I think we're going to be in a situation where you're going to have 2 skills and a job. We are going to have 3 or 4 different areas of work that we can dip and come out of, because obviously it's a different world now. So I think that's quite complicated as well. So my suggestion is that if you can find an area that you love, set something up.
Yeah.
Go for it. Give it a go. At least you can go away saying, I've done it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea that what you did is you set something up that you were really passionate about, but then you also found great people to surround yourself with. And I think that's one area that's so key, is actually you can't do everything on your own, and you're only as strong as your network and your circle. So if you've got really strong people there surrounding you, you can turn to, that makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
Correct. And that's exactly how you've done so well, because you've got a strength of really lovely people around you. And long may that last, because actually basically that, so when we're going back to your first question, I'm going to say that's exactly it. You need to be out to network, to find the people that you need to have around you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And if it's we all go to parties or festivals or whatever, the main thing is there are some really lovely people out there who want to be part of your circle. So it is a matter. We can't all be like that, but if you have a really good friendship group, you are going to do much better than being in a situation where you're in your room on your computer.
Absolutely. And I also think those skills aren't necessarily taught in many schools or at university. So what happens is, we're formed to be very academic, to learn to pass exams, to, go to university. And then what happens is, I've noticed it with some of my clients, is they haven't really got much or any work experience. And then when they do get on the job market, they are terrified of this thing called networking because they've never been exposed to it. And no one's taught them how to do it. It's not been part of their daily routine. And so, how can we get the young exposed to that earlier on?
Interesting. I think, again, we go back to school, all right? And you go back to school, you're either a sociable child or you're not a sociable child, whatever. And let's not label it like that. That's how we are. And I think the support system of one's parents and hopefully the older people around you, you can start having some more, a little bit more comfort in being with people, in being in rooms. And I think I'm a great believer, we've talked about this before, I'm a great believer we go back to the mentors. If you've got mentors around you, you can ring up and say, listen, I'm not doing this and I can't do that. And I think it's really important just to push us through to get the younger generation into a situation where they feel content and not lonely. I think somebody said to me ages ago, one has to learn to live with loneliness at some stage of your life. And I think that is absolutely vital in life, and how you get through that. And that everybody gets lonely in life at some stage in their life, however much. And if you can gain that and gain the experience through it and realize when you are lonely, it is only a moment in time and that you will go forward, then I think as a young person, you will grow up in a different format, knowing that you can be okay in loneliness. And that's also very complicated because a lot of children are lonely.
I agree with that. I think a lot of people are lonely, children and adults. And that's one thing you're really great at, is actually providing support to people feeling lonely, whether it's the young, whether it's, I know you work with quite a few women who are going through divorce or separation. And I think that's so important to be able to pick up the phone and say, I'm feeling quite lonely, or I'm feeling really lost. And I know that's something I've always felt really comfortable being able to do with you, to just pick up the phone and say, can we meet for a coffee, or can we brainstorm, or I'm feeling a bit lost?
Well, I think that goes both ways as far as I'm concerned. So I thank you for that too. And the friendship, we've known each other for 8 years, nearly 7 years. And I think the relationship of two people going forward in different ways is really important. And I think the other thing about it is your strength in life. The people that you have, as you know, around you, the people who've supported you, from an accountant to all of that is invaluable in life, because basically they're your family. They're building a business with you. They want to see you achieve. Yep. And I think we're sort of relating to that within the environment of children. I want to see everybody I see achieve. I've seen an 8-year-old to a 98-year-old, 95 actually, year old. And I haven't turned anybody away. Yeah. And I think it's so important that you give them time, And I think that I think time is precious too.
I agree. I think time is precious, and I think it's understanding people learn in different ways. As you know, I have an array of clients. I have a couple of clients who are neurodiverse. I have other clients who are extroverts, and then some who are more in the middle. And so networking is going to be a different experience for all of them. But what I always say is, treat it as something social and as an opportunity to meet someone new. And actually, you never know who you're going to meet there. You could end up making a friendship, or it could be more business-based. But I always say, start with what it is that you're interested in. And actually, sometimes you need to be a little bit ballsy as well. And if you're looking for a job, say it, mention it to that person you're speaking to, because you don't know who they might know. Their partner or their uncle or their father or sister might actually know someone or be in that area.
Yeah.
So you don't know how far you are from making that next important connection. And I've always been amazed at how different people at my events have actually connected and then gone and done business together. And I think that's really quite special. And it's saying to them, don't be afraid to ask.
And I have to go, you know, honestly, I have to say to you, with Invicta Vita, you've achieved a huge amount in a very
Thank
short
you.
space of time. And I know that it will continue in the same way. And I think I have to say it's grown from an embryo into something very interesting, because you're dealing with all ages now. Whereas obviously you deal with the young, but you're also dealing with all ages. And I think that, I mean, I started with my business dealing with only the older people, you know, divorce space, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But in fact, you know, my heart is with the young, because I've seen my own children in different situations, and that's it. You only want the best for them all, really. And, you know, we can't do it all, but we try our best.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes a business evolves. It starts out with a particular area or vision, and then it grows as it sees the needs, as you've seen.
Correct.
You know, you're very involved with the young, but then it's also evolved, and you help a lot of women as well navigating difficult situations, personal spaces that are very tricky. And what I've found is initially I thought it was going to be almost solely focused on the young, but what I realized is there was this whole other array of people who were already a bit more established in their careers, and who were just either struggling and finding themselves in a toxic work culture, which, you know, can be really, really debilitating and difficult. And I think we've all been there at some point in our lives. And so they needed a voice and someone who could help them, whether they're struggling with, you know, misogyny in the workplace, or some kind of prejudice, or whether it was a more mature person who wanted a career change but not sure where to begin. And that can be really quite scary when you've been in your current industry for 15, 20 years and suddenly decide, I want to pivot, but I don't really know what's right for me.
And I remember everybody saying to me, you know, I thought business went straight. Well, it absolutely doesn't. And I think it's a bit like life. I think you have to grow it organically. It has to grow around you. We all do things that are a mistake, and we all do things wrong. Nobody's perfect. And little businesses are very invaluable at the moment, very valuable at the moment. And I feel very, very strongly about going back to the young setting up businesses, because I think it's really important. I think the value of that is huge. And we're doing, well, I've certainly done it at a later age. You've done it at a prime time, and in such a great area, because I think, you know, the outside of our lives is quite, you know, scary. But in fact, what we're doing is trying to support everything that's going on around us, because at the end of the day, that's what you've only got today, not tomorrow. And we need to make certain these children are in the right space at the right time. And that is wholly important, I feel.
Absolutely. I love the idea of people setting up their own businesses. I think the UK is one of the prime places for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are actually really supported, and it's just an entrepreneurial culture, unlike many countries in Europe, which I think is great. And it's about having that confidence in those people around you to say, you know what, you can do it. And actually being inspired by other people who've done it. And it's really topical because, as you know, I'm having an event very soon talking about entrepreneurs and having a few entrepreneurs on the panel. So if someone is actually thinking about that right now, is it right for me? How do they know whether it's right for them?
I think that's a difficult question. I think to be an entrepreneur is sort of mind blowing, really.
Yeah.
I think you have to work jolly hard to get there. I think it's a difficult word to line up on somebody, but I think it is really important that people like Richard Branson, they start from a different start, because he started in a record shop selling records. So and look, but did he know it at the time? Probably, maybe, but not really, probably. And he had to find his own path.
Yeah.
And he's made mistakes, we all know, but he's done a fantastic job at what he's tried to do.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly that if you're going to do something that is valuable and impressionable, you've got all the skills to do it. It's just trying to find I think the inside part of you to achieve it. And we all need people around us to help us go.
Yeah, absolutely. We need people to encourage us. And sometimes you might actually be doing it without quite realizing how much you're doing it. I mean, that's what I found myself, is that I was mentoring people, I was helping people get jobs or interview prep. And actually, it was a client of mine who said, "Why don't you set up your own business?" Not realizing that that meant that I was going to leave the banking industry. But he actually said to me, "You're really good at this and you've helped a lot of young people get jobs. Why don't you actually set something up?" And that got me thinking. It really did. And so you get that experience and you see you're really passionate about it and you enjoy doing it. And if you don't try, you'll never know. Correct. And actually, I thought to myself, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I will just stay in the corporate world and I will never actually do what I'm really passionate about.
But I think also you evolve.
Yeah.
From young to as you get older, you evolve, and as we were sort of saying, it is the path that you take that's really important. Now, you don't know your path, or you haven't got a clue what your path is, but if you have the will to want, you're gonna go, you're gonna get there, as you have done. And I can't really say I've done it, but it's been fun, and I've loved every minute of it. And I think you with Invicta Vita are in the same area. You're doing the same things. You're achieving in your own way, and then it's not work. It's literally you love what you're doing.
Yeah,
and that is really special.
Thank you.
Really,
that means
really
a lot
special
to me, and you've been a big part of that. I want to come back just to the fact we were talking about flakiness, people cancelling. Yes. When do you know that, okay, I shouldn't give this person another chance?
Well, and we've been there with that. So I'm an old lady, so I get a bit grumbly. So I have had I've had an experience which I've explained to you, but I won't say. But I've had an experience that has been unbelievably difficult, and there are very few things that make me very cross.
Yeah,
and
that's fair to say.
I was sort of very cross, and I left it. I was sort of very cross on a Friday, and I went back to it on Monday. And by the time Monday came, I thought I was going to be better, but I wasn't really. But anyway, once I wrote the email to the young person who I'd obviously been, I felt a bit better for doing it, just to explain that the situation had become a little bit complicated, that for the last 3 or 4 times he hadn't appeared at any of my things. Now, we have to also allow for dismantlement of day-to-day living, and he might have been in a very difficult place, so I wasn't going to give him a complete lecture. But in that, you have to sort of say, sorry, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And if you need help, I'm happy to help, but I can't go on just being there for you when you cancel on the last minute.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this in a generational thing, and this is not a criticism. It is basically just explaining. I think a lot of people cancel at last minute, and I think it's become quite poor. And I think that, I'm not saying that's excessive. I'm just saying that, again, there should be an explanation in there to be able to turn around and say, listen, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I haven't done it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that is necessary now. I think people who cancel twice should definitely write an email saying, I'm really sorry,
Yeah.
and could I possibly give you a cup of coffee? If I was a young person now and I'd cancelled on you 2 or 3 times, I would be, and I wanted to meet you, I would be saying, would it be possible to, because I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee, whatever. And then that makes it a bit more, do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
turns the ball.
completely.
You can then turn around and say, well, I thank you very much indeed, no. But it brings it back into your court, and I would never turn anybody down who did that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to have that etiquette and that tact and to actually explain why you're having to cancel. We all get sick, it happens, you know.
Correct.
It's happened to me, but it's explaining it, and it's not canceling 20 minutes before the appointment when the person's already on their way, and repeatedly canceling. And actually, my mentor said to me one time, and it really stuck with me. She said, people who pay attention.
Yes.
And I think that's so true. And so if people are getting your time and your advice regularly for free, they instinctively see it as less valuable. Whereas if they're actually paying, if it's a service, they're not going to be as flaky.
Yes.
And I've had to be firm as well when I have clients that if they come and they're 20 minutes late, well, actually, you've got 40 minutes left because it's an hour session. I have other clients. I have to be respectful of their time and their diaries. And actually, what you find is when you do that, people suddenly end up being really on time.
Yes. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Absolutely. I completely agree.
And I think it's something maybe that's not focused on enough, but it's that art of being respectful, mutual respect, you know, showing up when you've got an appointment and actually not regularly cancelling. I've had it as well at events. It happens. Sometimes people are sick or they might have an urgent deal. But I tend to find there are certain people who are your kind of classic no-shows every time. And I think it's being respectful and saying, you know what, I'm not going to invite those people anymore because they always end up cancelling.
Yes, exactly. My mother would say it's manners.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's sort of manners, and we were brought up like that probably. And, I think I completely understand that it is complicated and children's lives are very different to what that we had. But I think when it comes down to work, when it comes down to, you running your business, it is really important to have the wherewithal to be able to understand the other half's existence. Somebody else is important. And if you're seeing somebody like yourself as a younger person, that you're very lucky to be seeing you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that in a, posh way. I just mean it, I've asked to see you,
Yeah.
and you've been, welcoming enough to say, yeah, I'd love to see you. That's quite something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not meaning that in a good or bad way. I just think it's just called manners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's so important, and it's important to re-emphasize it because people do remember.
Yeah,
absolutely. And people do remember when you're grateful and when you say thank you and when you actually help them.
Correct. Absolutely.
It's been so great having you on, Rara. You've been fantastic. I really appreciate your time, your insights. You've been through so much, and you've only shared a snippet of that, but I'm really grateful to you. And I just want to say thank you for all the support you've shown me and all the support you continue to show countless people, both the young and other people.
Thank you. It's vitally important, and I thank you, and I wish you all the best with Invicta Vita.
Thank you so much.